Pray for more children come. Pero busy na. Trầm hương xót tha người quân nguyệt nguyệt kinh đấng yêu cầu xin chúng con thành chúng khói hay dương đàn niềm âu đã truyền tới nhờ chân lý chúng sanh đều phân một đọc ký kinh vì dưới đại thế đất hóa trong tình hiền màu thắm tươi cây ngài con linh sáng đi hoàn trang con người phương đều tự hào hoan háo đời nhìn vào trên soi các khung quần xanh phần nào trong cùng nhau tin đăng vào thiên thành nam mô sư thích ca mâu ni phật nam mô sư thích ca mâu ni phật nam mô sư thích ca mâu ni phật nam mô sư thích ca mâu ni xin cho khói trầm thơm với thành hay năm sắc dân mang gặp hồi phương cúng vô lượng Phật vô lượng chư Bồ Tát cùng các thánh hiền tăng nơi các giới dung tâm kết dài xem rực rỡ miệng làm kẻ đồng hành trên con đường giác ngộ xin mọi loài chúng sanh từ bảo cõi năm quyên theo đường giới định tuệ quay về trong tỉnh thức đại thân tôn giáo pháp môn bất tận thiên nhân di hạt sơ thị cổ ngã quy y nhờ tăng tính đại nam mô đệ nhất mười phương thượng trụ cửu vô thượng như phật nhờ theo lá đường rấu thanh tình câu đa la năm trời năm tấn bình thì cổ ngã quy y nhờ tăng tính đại nam mô đệ nhất mười phương thượng trụ bình cửu vô lượng địa pháp đại diện chư Bồ Tát thanh tịnh tứ sa môn năm cứu nhân giáo đồ này cổ ngã quy y nhờ tăng tính đại nam mô đệ nhất mười phương thượng trụ cửu vô lượng thanh hiền
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to practice meditation. We have about 20 minutes to meditate. For the newcomers, I would like to use some basic guidance how to meditate. Now, everybody, please sit comfortable on your cushion or your chairs. Use your hands massage your face, neck, back, legs, and arms. Be comfortable when you for meditation session. In Buddhism, there are many ways we can meditate in order to achieve a state of one positive mind. The most effective and common method we use is on the heart breath. If you feel you need to choose the touching part of the breath, usually the area around the neck or the part of the head. When you begin, mindfully acknowledge your breath as touching point. When you breathe out, once again, mindfully acknowledge your breath as touching point. But the most important advice, you need to follow the breath continuously in order to avoid the arising of a single thought in your mind. However, if you use straight from outside or uncontrolled and arising in your mind, don't go. Return to the main object of meditations in mind, your breath, and take you off. Realize together at the end of meditation. Once again, with your mindfulness, with your hands, massage your face, the neck, the shoulder, armrest, be comfortable, and then for a second. I will wait for myself when you are out. When you are home, try to practice meditation every day. Early in the morning, late at night, long or short section, prepare your heart and breathe. However, if you do faithfully every day, with due time, we will achieve a state of quiet, which will grow well and achieve in all things. city of the binary base was empty of self as its fantasy of work and of sufferings and does not differ from omnis emptiness and emptiness is from the same empty set of feelings, conceptions, actions, and consciousness. Characteristics of the emptiness of all Brahmas are that they are not arising, not ceasing, not default, not evacuating, not increasing, and not decreasing. There are no forms, no feelings, no conceptions, no actions, no consciousness, no idea, no body, or mind object, object, no elements until we come to know elements of consciousness is no ignorance and no extinction of ignorance, no awakening and death, no extinction of awakening and death, no truth of suffering, and no truth of the causes of suffering, of the sensation of suffering, of the mechanism, no knowledge and no attainment whatsoever.
the restoration and health of the natural world, its waters, plants, and creatures, and to all living service with gratitude. May this good crop be extended to all relations, and may we realize the Buddha way together.
Humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and fruitful in their ways. Peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and lacking in wishing gladness and safety. May all beings be at peace, whatever the beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong or weak and dumb, the great or the mighty, be it short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at peace. Let none deceive another, or despise any deed in his neighbor. Let none feel anger or ill will, which harm one another. Even as mother protects her life, her child for one child. So with the body's heart, should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading love through the skies, downwards to the depths, outward and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, sitting or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this revelation. This is said to be the high abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure hearted one, having clarity of vision, being free from all sense desires, is not born again into the world of May I be happy and well. May no harm come to me. May I learn compassion. May all my friends, family, and those I love be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May I learn compassion. May learn from them. May all my enemies be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn from them. May all living beings be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn from them.
pháp hành tam thế làm hương linh trong phương pháp danh diệu minh. Từ trần ngày ông 3 tháng 11 hãy hứa dễ thương thảo pháp sạch tế gặp hương linh nguyện văn thanh pháp danh diệu tràng hưởng thảo lục thầm thâm thế gặp như hương linh hoàng vị danh tháng ngày hôm tháng 3 năm 34 từ trần ngày 1 tháng 3 hay mới gặp năm trắng chương linh nơi đất già lam này cùng hương linh ra 10 hương nữ danh một vị nữ vị vô danh rút đạo tạo hương thở đã phát thường thừa tư công đức thừa tư Phật lực vạn linh linh đã tạo sức tam đồ siêu sanh linh độ nhất thành đường đạo pháp quy tâm tiêu khuyên cho tất cả hương linh giác ngộ cao siêu kỳ giao quyến hành chim lợi làm một năm siêu dương thời ta cho chúng sanh tình giữ vô tình
rồi non Good morning, everybody. Are you ready for second? Who volunteered today? Maybe you, Carol, then you lead the team. We sitting too long, right? Carol, all yours.
Bring out the big hip with the water. Like sit. Do the dance. Sit. Just hold that. Bring it up. Breathe. And try to stay with that. Do one thing for you.
That's good.
Okay, that's it. One more time, reading. And
Good morning again. You feel good?
yes.
Yeah, I have to check again. Who the person I come to invite and attend service today? 1, 2, 2. So please introduce you to us. Where you from? What you name from? And how you find out one thing from. Okay. I'm registered. Okay, we welcome you. Okay. Welcome here. So you left home early. So how can you get it from who welcome you? Welcome. And
My name is Lydia. I'm from Florida. Friend of mine came a few weeks ago and showed me the pictures.
and you come this morning.
Yesterday.
So we welcome you here in that house. Yes.
Yes.
We welcome you. Any language anybody else? Okay. So the rest of us is not here always, right? So usually we have more members come, but now so we welcome you. And the call to service is meditation. If you study the hymn, meditation, 20 minutes meditation every time, that's the call to service. And then you. The next session, I'm glad to have session was today. He will give us a down talk today, special sutra, right? The sutra medicine.
Yeah, medicine
So,
Buddhism.
medicine heal everything. Okay, so I turn the microphone over to you.
Thank you.
Is your sutra?
Don't trip over that cable. I forgot to tape it down. Don't trip over that cable.
Oh, you did?
I forgot to tape it down.
Okay.
Okay. I would feel really bad if you tripped over it. After I got through laughing. Anyway, I got a text message a few days ago from Michelle who asked if I could talk about the Medicine Buddha Sutra today. And I asked, why now? Was there significance to that? And she explained that that every year, around this time of year, the Sukkos chant that for 2 weeks around this time of year. Is that right? Yeah. And I've been coming here for a long time, and I didn't know that. So she thought it would be nice if I explained that to you so you'd know what they were doing. I didn't know that they did that here, as I said, but it's a really good practice. So the Medicine Buddha is kind of a big presence in some schools of Buddhism. So Tibetan Buddhism, for example, a big deal. But also in a number of other Mahayana contexts. It's not really a part of the other traditions that I'm connected to personally, but I'm glad they do it here. It's a beautiful sutra. It's very profound, and I think that it can be helpful to those who learn about it. So let me give you just a little bit of background on it. The text to this particular sutra is attributed to Sakyamuni Buddha, but it's not part of the original canon of discourses and so on. The earliest historical reference to it is about 7th century. So that's quite a while after the Buddha Sakyamuni's life. So this would be sort of one of the more evolved manifestations of the Dharma, you could say. A lot of the Mahayana sutras came into being, after the Buddha's death, sometime afterward, and as Buddhism evolved and expanded, and other enlightened masters gave teachings, and so some of these teachings became embodied in these other sutras. So it's not a very long one. Actually, I got the whole thing right here, so it's not real long. But I want to sum it up for you and go over kind of how you might make this useful to your own practice. So the story is the Buddha was staying at a monastery at Vaishali, which is in northeastern India, not too far from the border with present-day Nepal. And that's a very significant place for several reasons. It's the place where the Buddha first ordained women, for example, where the order of nuns was established. And it's where he gave his last big discourse to a large group of people before his death. And so in this particular sutra, it starts off, says that the Buddha was there with a number of monks, nuns, householders, and various heavenly beings. In fact, it talks about thousands of them. So this is one of those situations where we're transported sort of poetically from conventional time, historical time, to absolute time. So the Buddhas, the thousands, tens of thousands of beings in this relatively small place. And so Manjushri is among them. So you know who Manjushri is. We chanted his name at the beginning of the service, talking about the great wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva. And so he's there, and he asked Sakyamuni Buddha, would you please talk about the other Buddhas? So for those of you who are new to this, there's one historical Buddha, the Sakyamuni Buddha. He was the human being who was born in this particular world, in this particular era, and practiced for a number of years, became enlightened, taught for 45 years, passed away just like the rest of us would. But Manjushri is asking about Buddhas from other spaces and times, so outside of this sort of conventional historical time. He wants to know who these Buddhas were. What's their names? What vows did they take to become enlightened? What virtues they had so that others could follow their examples? And Sakyamuni says, oh, yeah, good idea. We'll talk about that. He says, and he starts off telling about this one that many, many worlds away, as many worlds away as there are sands in the Ganges, he says. So that's a lot. Think about how many grains of sand at Daytona Beach. And that number of worlds away would be where this land is. There's a pure land called the Pure Crystal Realm. And the Buddha who created that pure land has several titles, but we know him as the Master of Healing or the Medicine Buddha. So at one time, he would have been a human being like us, but over the course of many lifetimes, he developed his desire to awaken in order to benefit others. And to become a Buddha, he made 12 vows. So I'm going to use slightly shortened versions and slightly modified versions of these vows, and I'll explain a couple of things. But basically, Pure Lands are worlds that are created as a result of a bodhisattva developing his goodness until it's perfect. And then he becomes a Buddha in a pure land. So it's not like another planet. It's really a sort of more like a mental realm that's created out of the goodness of someone who really wants to liberate all beings, who wants to become a Buddha to save others. And so these vows are ways that he expressed that wish to develop his compassion so completely that he would become enlightened. And so the first vow is that in his pure land, his body should shine like a brilliant light, throwing beams on infinite and boundless worlds. And his vow is, may all beings become equal to me and exhibit all the marks of the Buddha. And then the second, so in other words, he wants his enlightenment to be able to affect all beings in all worlds, all places and times. And then his second vow is, having attained perfect enlightenment, may my body be like a crystal in spotless purity, both inside and outside. Brighter than the sun and moon, I shall reveal my great power to all beings in obscurity, so that they too can be enlightened. In other words, he wants a light of his awakening to be so powerful that it can touch anyone who lives in darkness. Anyone who is not awakened can be affected by his purity. Whoever is born in my pure land, may they always enjoy material abundance and be free from all worldly concerns. So, if you go to this particular heaven when you die, then whatever hardships you've experienced here in the Saha world, the world of suffering and sorrow and impermanence, you're free from all of that. When you're reborn in a pure land, it's like being in the perfect heaven. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So you can focus on your own ability to become a Buddha. Then his fourth vow, may all those who have been practicing Buddhism dwell in Bodhi mind and realize the Bodhisattva ideal. In other words, he was bringing everyone into the Mahayana. So there's different forms of Buddhism. Original teachings were to become awakened yourself, so you're out of the cycle of coming and going. And the Mahayana, the idea is we want to make the Buddha teachings available to everyone, not just monks and nuns, but all people. And so, and we become enlightened, not for our own sake, but for the sake of all beings. And so he's saying everyone who practices now is going to become a bodhisattva. Fifth vow, may those born in my pure land pay utmost attention to the purity of their conduct. May the results of negative karma due to previous actions be deferred to the time of most benefit to spiritual growth. In other words, you could have been as sinful as you were, however imperfect we all are, and he's going to liberate you anyway. So this is a way for imperfect people, imperfect beings, to be transformed through his vow, and so that enlightenment is available to us. May all those in my pure land be healthy and whole of body and mind. May they be relieved of any discomfort or disorder that hinders spiritual growth. So this is where he starts to become the medicine Buddha. You'll see a lot of vows along these lines of, wanting everybody to awaken. But here he's starting to focus specifically on the suffering of beings and from physical causes. And so he says, if you've lived a life of pain, which we all do, just it's a matter of degree, but if you've lived a life of pain, when you're reborn, you'll be free from that. May my name become a mantra that heals all ailments. May the sound of my name and the image of my spiritual body be a balm that heals all pain. May the sound of my name or visualization of my image cure physical troubles and sickness. So he means that this, I think, in a couple of ways. And one is that when we're, if we can transcend the cycle of coming and going, the cycle of suffering and being reborn, that when we're reborn in this pure land, we don't have to worry about that stuff. But he's also saying, I think, that if you contemplate him and his name and his healing power, that it will ease your suffering. Much in the same way that if we meditate on the compassion of Avalokiteshvara, that we recognize ourselves as being recipients of compassion, and we develop our own compassion. And our compassion is what transforms us. So this is another way with the medicine Buddha to develop our own compassion for those who suffer, and to and as a part of that, to transform our own suffering. This is the eighth vow. May those who wish to change gender have that wish be fulfilled. May that choice lead directly to enlightenment. So what he really says is, if you're a woman and you don't want to be a woman anymore, then you can be reborn a man. A lot of times people will hear something like that and they'll think this is being sexist, that women aren't as good as men. But what it's saying is, women suffer more than men do. We have it pretty easy, right? So, and I can imagine in the 7th century AD, 1400 years ago, it was a lot harder. And so what he's saying is, if you want to go through that again, you don't have to. When you're reborn, if you're concentrating on the medicine Buddha, you don't have to be a female again. I'm just the messenger. All right. May those who hold wrong views or beliefs, those of religions that lead to evil results, develop right view. And as a result, may they engage in bodhisattva activities. So he's talking about religious practices that existed back then that were kind of like, you might equate it with something like black magic. People who practice religion in order to cast spells on other people, harm other people, and that kind of thing. He's saying if someone practices that kind of thing, he wants to liberate them too. He wants to get them out of that cycle so that they learn right view. May those who live in fear and are easily controlled, who feel threatened with incarceration and punishment, leave behind their fears of catastrophe. And he kind of goes on to talk about people in prison. So basically, if in this life you've been imprisoned or you're afraid of being in prison, that if you, through the efforts of his vow, his purity, his compassion, that if you're reborn, you don't have to deal with that. May those who suffer from hunger have the material needs met upon hearing my name. May their freedom result in the recognition of their innate bodhisattva nature. So if you're starving, if you're hungry, if you're poor, then you don't have to deal with that again. It's really recognizing all these different forms of suffering that people experience and saying, I want the strength of my practice to free everyone from all of that. And so free from hunger, and the next one is similar, free people who lack shelter, people who lack clothing, and lack other necessities for life. And so after he made these great vows, he kept his mind set on these promises throughout many lifetimes. And as a result, he became a Buddha with his own pure land. So those who have, and the purpose of this is so that those who follow the wrong paths, who've been consumed by greed, hatred, and delusion, if they hear about this compassion and this dedication, they can use this example to awaken in the Pure Land and be free from all those kind of concerns. So in the rest of this sutra, the Buddha goes through this, has this conversation with Manjushri, and he talks about several examples of people, the kind of people who can be freed because of the compassion of the medicine Buddha. For example, he says there are those who do not distinguish good from evil. They indulge incessantly in greed and avarice. They don't know generosity and its effects. They're foolish and have no faith. They accumulate riches and guard them selfishly. When they have to bestow a charity, it's as painful as if they were cutting a piece off their own body. He says, after their death, people like that are reborn as hungry ghosts or as animals. But if they happen to hear of the medicine Buddha, even a little bit, even sitting here hearing a Dharma talk and hearing this name mentioned, then when they remember him, even as a hungry ghost or an animal, if that memory comes up, then that a bit of merit, having heard this and then developing from that, they'll be reborn in the world of men. And then they'll remember their former life as hungry ghosts or animals and be afraid of being reborn that way. And they'll be glad to practice charity, glad to praise those who are generous, no longer greedy, don't regret the alms given by themselves. And so after that, they don't return to the lower realms and eventually will reach the Pure Land. So again, in other words, he wants to save all beings, even those who are really consumed by greed or by anger and things like that. And so by hearing about this compassion, you'll realize that you're able to develop that kind of compassion also. And that development will free you from having to be reborn in a bad place. And eventually, you can develop your practice so you'll be reborn in a Pure Land. So those whose lives are ruled by pride, cruelty, sensual desires, and so on, with the help of the Medicine Buddha, can turn away from evil and make spiritual progress. If you're tending to a sick person, you can meditate on the Medicine Buddha and his Dharani. So a Dharani is kind of an interesting concept in Buddhism. It's a mantra that doesn't necessarily mean anything. So Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhiswaha is an example. Although those words actually do mean something, but when you unpack the words, it means something more than that. We chant the mantra of compassion, to the Bodhisattva compassion. And it's sort of a combination of actual words and sounds that sound like words, and the idea is that these things have their powerful sounds. Everybody's heard of the power of Om, for example. It's kind of like that, but even more of it. And so he gives people a Dharani that they can chant. I'm not going to try to chant it because I don't do it very well. But you can actually look this stuff up. There's a free version of it online, a PDF version, if you're interested in knowing more about this, and you could do this. But if you want to, you can say this Dharani, and this is a meritorious thing to do. And so the goodness that you generate as a result will help you, and you can share it with others. And so it will help others, and so assist in healing, or assist in their greater happiness. So when we practice with the idea of the Medicine Buddha, the main thing is to remember these commitments and aspire to do the same thing, and to think about your practice as something that benefits all living beings. And so if you do this with love, with compassion, with the hope of awakening so that you can awaken others, then it has benefits both for you and for the rest of the world as well. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you for your attention.
Well, we slowly expect that.
I was
We very happy. Thank you very much for
good.
the talk.
Good. I'm glad.
Anybody have any questions, comments? Carol? Yes. Good talk.
Sensei, this is a east meets west question. If what you said is true, that means that in any all, we will all become more and more compassionate, because the evil ones will come back and kill off our own resources, right? So theoretically, we would all ultimately have fully compassionate population. The Western mind is telling me that there is a sense of the primitive mind of man, if you believe in evolution. There is an innate, natural tendency to either resent or be territorial or be angry. And it's nature versus nurture. I mean, is it really possible that we don't think that one day the whole planet can be filled with compassionate people?
Yeah, so I hope so. I mean, that's kind of what keeps me going. And we can look at the world and see that over time, if you look at the grand arc of history, you'll see that I think things are moving in a generally more compassionate direction. We're still human beings, but we have the opportunity, always have the opportunity to be better human beings, to do more meritorious things, to be more caring and compassionate. The primitive brain is highly reactive, and there are neurologists around who could explain this a lot better than me, but the parts of the brain that are involved in conscious thinking can kind of override that to some extent. And so, there's some interesting research been done on like whether children are inherently compassionate or whether they have to learn that and that kind of thing. And I think we see, I think that there's an inherent willingness to share. It's in competition with our inherent selfishness too. But I think that one of the reasons that there are religions, not just Buddhism, but religions in general, is that it helps to convey values like compassion, like generosity, those kinds of things. If you look at any of the major religions, always things like gratitude and generosity are always treasured. And so, I think that those are, and I think that kind of helps to enhance sort of our natural tendency as a species to understand that working together involves a certain amount of cooperation, which involves a certain amount of looking out for each other. I don't think we could have things like this if we hadn't, as a species, realized that sometimes we need to forget, the selfish part of our brain and cooperate. And so I think it's kind of programmed into us as human beings. I think that's why humans can become enlightened.
Yes, both sides are there.
Yeah. Well, the three poisons are going to always be present. If you're a reborn human being, you're subject to greed, you're subject to anger, you're subject to delusion, and then it's kind of up to you to try to deal with that and overcome that. Sure.
Thank you. Any other question, comment? New comment? No. Well, this is a very happy topic. Everybody wants to learn to feel and happy to live this life. Well, as you know, many of us, we have to practice and we believe that. We believe in the end of the day, we believe on Buddha, I vow to be connected to this life. I want to go to Phoenix so soon, right? We have a lot of fun here in this life, right? So I vow to be kind here. Everyone, my family. Sometimes, the family talking together, we talk about that. This shall do my will. I will be created, and my act will be created in white sand. I will see you all. And related to this life, we have all my vision. Well, that's right. Well, we have something to celebrate today. Are you ready? Are you ready to have a little celebration today? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah? What do you mean, yes? Why celebrate birthday to every single memory? Who come up that? I don't know. When I watched it today, and actually I found out our Siko had birthday yesterday. Is that good? Siko Minang birthday was yesterday. So you were 1 year older today, and you were 1 year. You were how long did you years? 1.5 years. All right. So we can candle. You have candles? Yes. And you just sing me like this song. Right? Oh, how? Yeah. You go sing the song. You know Siko? What is it? You give you some twine. All right. What do you think we decide? Actually, our simple winner and simple cartoon spent a lot of time and effort to prepare for the Lunar New Year event. And you see, you look around, the temple is beautiful. It's beautiful, it's peaceful, and so tired for like 2 weeks. But today is a big day for Simple. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Simple Vietnam. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Thank you. Yeah. Wow.
She said she didn't want to blow it, so nobody can eat it. She's doing that.
Thank you so much, everybody who came here. And when I come here, I'm very happy when I see everybody happy and everybody practice meditation and everybody support me. Today, today is my birthday, and I'm very happy when everybody have a birthday for me. Thank you so much.
We will support you forever and forever. Alright? Alright. Let's sing happiness song, my friend. Happy birthday to you. She's so fun. Happy day to Simple, huh? Okay. Let's sing happiness song before we kick off. Whenever I wake up, I feel happy. Aware of my life, I feel happy. Aware of my health, I feel happy. Because I am to those who need me. Whenever I walk, I feel happy. Whenever I sit, I feel happy. Whenever I rest, I feel happy. Because I have to know here and now, here and now.
very much. We see you all next week. Next Saturday, sorry.